as Shannon said, I work at WSU. I teach at WSU in the community and social practice curriculum. I'm also the director of Shift Space and a co-founder and program director of Harvester Arts. So when Shannon approached me to jury the show, I seized that opportunity. I love the opportunity to see the works by area artists because I'm always looking at ways to kind of spread my network and engage further into the community. For this show, we got a lot of great applications or submissions, I should say. But anytime you're jurying a show, you need to try to think about what it's actually going to look like in the space. So you can try to create kind of an aesthetic experience as a whole in the space. So that was kind of the direction I took. I selected works that followed a theme and that I knew would look good together right here. Really, I mean, that is a pretty simple process. Shannon had put the call out for swipe right, so the works were all about, relationships and love, or narratives around that, maybe not ideal narratives around that. So I didn't have to find a theme in the selection process. Sometimes you do, sometimes it's just an open call, so it's not juried around a theme. Anytime that happens, I still try to find a theme in the works that come in just to build a more cohesive show. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to open up for questions now or after artists come up. Is Shannon out there? Where is she? Should we do questions now or have everybody come up?
Yeah, we'll have everyone come up. Are you?
I think so. We can have a conversation with the artists for sure. But
Yeah, so we do have several of the artists who are exhibiting who are able to make it today. So we have
I see
Amy,
another one right here, Lauren.
and Kelsey and Lauren and Amanda. So they're going to join Kristin. Ladies, if you don't mind taking just a moment to introduce yourself, and then you can field questions.
Okay, I'll go first, I guess. I'm Amy Fougere. I'm a second-year painting graduate student at Wichita State, and teach intro to painting too. But my work is on the back wall there. It's called Ignite, and it's just a kind of abstract representation of that feeling of the fluttery feelings when you maybe meet someone, and so that's kind of how it relates to the show. Very feelings and abstract driven.
I'm Kelsey Gossett-Dennis, and I am a visual artist, mostly dealing with photography, video, performance work. And the images that I have in here are all Polaroids, triptychs, and then some single images. But I also teach art, so I teach it at Butler, at WSU, and photo class at Prince as well.
My name is Lauren Dosher. I'm a local Wichita native. I submitted a few digital images for this exhibit. I usually work in mixed media, acrylic paints, but this was kind of the first for me to submit a digital image, I guess, of sorts. And I just wanted to try something new, and it was successful, and it really worked really well with the theme, or at least the idea of the show. So I'm very happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Amanda Feaster. I am a visual artist working in photography mainly. And I am not from here, but I've lived here for a few years. I teach at Butler, and I've taught at WSU in the past. This is Gus, he's my buddy. And I have a photograph over here, Touch. And yeah, I think for me, this was out of a series that I had started where I wanted to get just these intimate shots of people in their spaces, and this is a couple I knew, and I was taking photos from multiple angles. And as art, you're always trying new things. that didn't work out, but this image stood out from all of that series, and so I really liked it. I thought it fit with this theme of swipe right, and so this intimate moment caught.
All right. I guess I'd really just like to field questions. If you guys have questions, and that could generate more conversation between us, or you can ask me or any of us questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
This third artist, I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Lauren, yeah.
Lauren, right. Which of your pieces?
These two right here. They're screenshot from iPhone, and then the image of my hands underneath the covers. So they're very intimate shots. I guess this one was actually, I was online dating for a while, and we were sending videos back and forth to each other. And so I realized that I was collecting quite a few videos after I was laying there for almost an hour trying to create something for this person, and I was like, is this a love letter to them, or is it about myself? You know, so yeah. The other one was just kind of a moment after talking to somebody.
So when did you decide? Was it a love letter to yourself or a love letter?
It was a love letter to myself, for sure. Yeah.
So can you talk about that a little bit? Elaborate on it. What does that mean?
Well, in the digital age, I think nowadays we're a little obsessed with our self-image, the way we want to perceive ourselves, especially on social media. And so being honest with that and trying to recognize that I am not my image, I am here. So it's just kind of a conversation with myself, I think, to remind myself that this is an idea of love, an idea of what I think a love letter is, but that then goes into a whole, idea of storytelling of what I really want my love letter to be. So.
I'm curious how many of you have experienced online dating? Really? Okay. It's different. How many of you are on Facebook or Instagram? Okay, so the way you kind of script your image there, imagine taking that into this emotional place where you're trying to connect with a person, because you're so torn between being real and showing the bad angles and the right, and trying to make the best version of yourself for this other person, which in fact, as Lauren said, you're really doing that for your own ego. You're doing that for yourself, not for them, because most of the time, if you're trying to make a real connection with somebody, the person on the other side of that screen wants to see the real you. They don't want to be surprised when they meet you for the first time, right? So it's a really kind of strange interaction. Yes?
Well, on that same topic, I live with these kids, day after day, and I see them going down the hall, and they might just be going down the hall and have some look on their face, and all of a sudden they smile and they click their picture, and then they go back to this, normal look that they have. And I talk to them about that, tease them a little bit about that, and how they're creating this persona, which is separate from, who they really are.
Yeah, I taught art appreciation for 10 years at Butler, and in talking about the formal elements and principles of design and all that. Do we have a lot of art appreciation students in the room? Okay. Okay, great. So I would send my students out to take photos and talk about different ways that you can manipulate a photo and tell different narratives through photos. And one of the examples I'd get is I'd ask the room, ladies, what angle do you take a photo from when you take a selfie? And almost all ladies will take the photo from this angle. And you ask men what angle they take a photo from. You rarely see a man taking a photo from this angle. They always take from this. So it's this kind of, you know, power dynamic that we set up and the way we think we should present ourselves to the world. Yeah, it's interesting, crazy stuff. But I met my husband online dating. It happens. Real connections happen.
Ms. Kelsey, could you explain your piece, please?
Sure. I have a couple. These two triptychs I create thinking a lot about how people perceive parts of my identity, being a queer woman, and how I feel like it's much different than maybe societal expectations of like this sort of mysterious or sort of fantasy version of like lesbian, straight male fantasy of that versus like this really sweet, simple love that I have with my partner. So I kind of, these two are talking about that, like what this mysterious, crazy, this woman like doing a handstand in front of a window, kind of like in a hotel room versus this is my home and this is my partner, this is someone I love, and this is, you know, little notes that she writes to me with letters on our refrigerator. And so talking a lot kind of about that. And then these two over here, I collaborated with another artist named Andy, who I worked with for several years. And she's like my muse. Like I work with her as much as I possibly can. But she recently moved to New York City. And so she was back home over break and we created these images together, kind of based off her dating life in New York City and how like different that was from being here and this online. So it fit in so perfectly. We had a lot of fun making those images together.
I want to point out too, Carter's not here, but I know these paintings on granite back here are from Carter Bryant is a student at WSU. He's an art history major, and I think he has a minor in painting. So these are of men that he met on Instagram and exchanged photos with to paint. And you see, they're not like, you know, they're not nudes or anything. They're not particularly scandalous, but I thought it was interesting that, you know, that was the interchange, right? Like he went there to find models that he could paint, because there's endless number of models that you can find on social media that would be happy to exchange photos with you. So, and I love that he put them on granite. Just thought it was an odd choice.
Can I pose a question to most of you, whoever wants to come in? Have a seat in the front row. No pressure. So many of the works in this exhibit are quite intimate in scale, and like we have works that specifically reference bone and that kind of shape and size and scale. You know, like Kelsey and Lauren, like how does that play into your process, and Kristin, did that come into mind as you were curating this exhibit at all? Like how does scale relate to the topic and also these expressions of love?
I mean, absolutely. Like I said, I experienced online dating for a while. You become very attached to your phone. We're all attached to our phones, but when you're seeking a relationship through your phone, it's a whole different game. So, and it's so, you know, we've probably all heard that quote, like we have the world's information in the palm of our hand and we spend it looking at cat videos, right? You've all heard that. Like, it's just this interesting human interaction with this object, which I, you know, more and more feel kind of chained down by. Like, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with my phone. I mean, I probably check my email 30 to 40 times a day because that's the expectation. We don't get to turn off ever, you know. So it's both larger than life and this tiny, ridiculously expensive, very breakable object, right? So yeah, and I love the kind of relationship between, say, Carter's little granite paintings where, you know, he's taken this digital interaction and painted them in this, you know, not even classical, maybe classical way. It just seems so far removed from the subject to me, which I thought was interesting. And Lauren's photos, which are so raw and of the moment. And if you've experienced online dating, that little series of photos there, it's very familiar, right? And then to Kelsey's photos, which I think also have this kind of nostalgia to them. I mean, I grew up with Polaroids, so a lot of the candid moments in my home, in my family's life, were done in Polaroids. And I even remember, this is a little personal information, but I remember finding Polaroids of my parents that they probably didn't want me to find. So they have some kind of, you know, extra meaning to them for me. But I love the, you know, like seemingly this is a drunk photo of the refrigerator or something, you know. But if you look further, you know, there are these little love letters on the fridge. I just think it's really special. And Alex Moore here did the kind of skins. It's like a phone case. I thought that was really interesting because partially because I know his work, and he makes these giant paintings that are all kind of about the sublime and flesh. They're just kind of super abstract. You can't really pull any identifiable information out of them. They look like landscapes, and they look like flesh, and they look like cellulite. They look like all of these things. So I just thought it was really fascinating for them to be made into a phone protector. I mean, then they start to look like stone, which, you know, talks back to Carter's work. And actually, Alex and Carter are a couple, so it just all, you know, makes sense. Hugo's work right behind Shannon, that piece is entitled Ghosted. If you've ever online dated, you know what that's all about too. So I just thought it was a really funny, kind of lovely little homage to being ghosted. It means they disappear. They one day tell you how amazing you are, and they, you know, want to spend the rest of their life with you, or maybe not quite that, and then they vanish, right? Completely. Or there's a term that's called catfishing, which is where people pretend to be other people online to, you know, solicit attention and affection from people. It's a crazy world out there. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Both of these two works of Hugo's, the image of the iPhone is actually used. That's this rectangular shape as an iPhone that's been digitally printed, kind of underscoring that ghosting idea again.
Well, as an older person, I kind of appreciate the juxtaposition of the most instamatic Polaroid kind of films and the pieces, the 4 pieces over here that are painted on those screen protector things, because I grew up in the post-World War II era where instant everything happened, and the big pen, the disposable big pen, the disposable razor, and the quick photography. We couldn't wait to develop film. We had to have it developed right now. We had to have it now. And then our attachment to this whole phone thing, where, I mean, to me they're very similar, but from their 2 completely different time periods. So the connection between this desire for instant gratification or something is very clear, I think, in the juxtaposition of those pieces.
Any other questions? No. Where does everybody online date now? Tinder? Okay, Cupid in 2012. But I think I hear about Tinder a lot now. No? Still okay, Cupid?
More of an intimate relationship versus a romantic, I think it's different for everybody. I think it's subjective too. Smaller cities, I feel like, are harder to be on Tinder because you swipe right and you cycle through 100 people, and then you're back at number 1 again.
And you know half of them.
Yeah, you always know them. You see them at the grocery store. And like,
yeah. Yep. All right. Well, if there are no more questions, yes?
Well, since we have you here,
Yes.
would you take a few minutes to tell the students about Harvester?
Sure.
About Harvester?
Harvester Arts is in Old Town. It's at First and Washington, next to B. Young Salon. It's the building that is painted in like greens and turquoise. Yes, much like your bracelet right there. Yes. We're a residency program. We were founded in 2014, so we bring artists from around the country. They spend a couple weeks in Wichita, make work, often experimental work, performance, installation, and then we partner them with local artists that make work in response to that work to keep the local artists in dialogue with the artists that we bring from around the country. We also partner with Riverfest every year to do the Riverfest Artist in Residence. So we've been doing that since 2015. We brought Wayne White, who is the designer of all the puppets behind Pee-wee's Playhouse. We brought Rachel Hayes, who did these giant sun sails. They go up in front in the Hyatt lawn there off of Waterman. Rachel, since she was here, has gone on to design for Missoni and is doing really big things. She's really blowing up. But she's based out of Tulsa, so she's really close by, and we love that. We brought James Marshall, who is an internationally known graffiti artist, muralist. His street name is Dalek, and he painted our building and also painted a DJ booth and had an installation there in Ackerman's backyard, which is at the Douglas Street Bridge and the river on the Riverfest footprint. And last year we brought Ju-Young Che, who is a Houston-based artist that made these giant, well, they were first inflatable, but then they deflated in the parade, so they became soft sculptures. Dinosaurs. And she did a really beautiful, colorful installation in a tent in the same area in Ackerman's backyard, and held workshops every night and had her dinosaurs. I'm forgetting their names. One was Big Believer, and I don't remember the other one, but the story was that they were lost and they were like trying to find each other throughout the festival. She creates these wild narratives around her work. This year, we're bringing George Ferrandi. George was our very first resident, and Harvester has been working with Symphony in the Flint Hills and George Ferrandi on an initiative called the Jumpstart Initiative, which is based on the fact that the North Star changes, which George learned this and it kind of blew her mind. And she started thinking about how she would plan that party. You know, the North Star changes in 1,000 years, and given the attention we give to major celestial events now, how will we celebrate something as major as the North Star changing? So it's a project that kind of looks back to look deep into the future, to plan and predict all the ways in which culture will change in the next 1,000 years. So we've done workshops around future food, costume and regalia, future dance, future narratives, every possible thing with culture, right? I can't think of them all. George will be our Riverfest artist this year, and then a week following, all of the work that we've been doing with her for the last 18 months will culminate at the Symphony in the Flint Hills on June 15th. So students at WSU worked with me this summer and George to build this giant sculpture that is also like a lantern. It's made of paper and wire. There are 12 of those that represent each of the 12 future North Stars. George gave them characters, so they each have been kind of brought to life. They're being made all over the country, and there will be this kind of pilgrimage of them coming to the Flint Hills this summer. There'll be a special performance with them, as well as there's a Jumpstart composer that's come on to write a piece for the Kansas City Symphony. We have a local or a creative team lead that is a choreographer, an astrophysicist, a climatologist, a singer-songwriter. You can find out all about this, more than you could ever hope to hold on to, at jumpstart.love is the website. So check it out. Yes. All right.
Do the three of you, Kelsey had to leave to go teach a class, but do any of you have events or opportunities coming up where your work will be shown that we can or should know about? Or things you're doing that are interesting?
Okay. Well, I was a community fellow with Harvester, and so we currently have, to kind of finish up, there were 7 of us. Yep. We just invited artists outside, local and outside of Wichita, to send work, and that's called Art Atlas. So it's a nice variety of work that I think kind of represents like our interest, or we've got a fantastic sculpture of a cake, and one artist, he has locals, Mary's in it, send in work that they had created in high school or elementary or college, and so it was kind of like those art pieces that they made that maybe aren't great, but really like started them on their path to making art. So that's up through Final Friday in February. Do you guys do Final Friday? Yeah. So come out to Harvester Final Friday to do that. You have to show up.
Yeah, I have some sketches up at the Garvey Center at the Kiva, which is the Barbary Roasters little shop at the Garvey Center in the basement. So check it out. Black and white prints. So.
Awesome.
Anything else? All right. Ladies, thank you all so much.